Welcome to the Mesidor Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. Joined today by Bill, Andrew, and EJ. It's our Thursday night crew with a bonus of Bill. And we're breaking down the Miami draft class. EJ, what'd you think of the Miami draft class?
It's some guys there that have a lot of upside to what like like on the defensive side of the ball, it's a lot of guys you got a small sample size of, but that small sample size was very interesting. Like if they put together a full season, like you can see the talent on the team, but if they put together a full season of consistent high level play, then we might have something there. On the offensive side, you got some known draft prospects, some high level draft prospects that you get a closer look at, and then you got some diamonds in the rough. You got some guys that with a good season can really kick in the door of the draft conversation.
Andrew, how about you? What was your overall summary of the Miami draft class?
They definitely got some heavy hitters at the top with Mauigoa and Bain Jr. And then they've got a lot of, I would probably say, mostly probably day three guys filling in the rest of the way. But again, a lot of them transfers really up Mario Cristobal's avenue, really Miami's avenue, go all the way back to Manny Diaz, back when the transfer portal became a big thing. Mark Fletcher is a homegrown talent, so I'll give him credit there. But no, I think there's a lot of promise with the group. There's some injuries with the group as well. But there's definitely some fun stories, some fun athletes, some guys we were wondering, like, they're really kind of banking on the talent around them, which we'll get to a certain somebody with that background. But yeah, I think it's a fun group. I think last year's Miami team was in better shape with Cam Moore definitely being the ship the tide that raised all ships. I don't know if they're going to have somebody that can do that for this team again, but the pieces around there might be a little bit better. So it's interesting. Like I said, they've got two heavy hitters at the top and then a bunch of, I don't want to say role players, but if we're looking at an NBA comparison, they've got 2/3 of a big three, and then they've got their Mike Millers, their Birdmans, and everybody else kind of filling in there.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Bill.
Yeah.
Your edge one is on Miami. You want to kick the main event off.
Oh yeah, and not only is he my edge one, he's my number one overall player on my big board right now, and it's Rueben Bain Jr. 6'3", 275. Just an exceptional first step. Just blows people out of the water. A motor that runs white hot, like I'm pretty sure it was made in Chernobyl, like nuclear heat in terms of this motor, the way it goes long into the night. Really good lateral agility and change of direction skills. And people often talk about that he didn't look as fluid as an athlete last year. You have to look, he did have a calf injury for most of the year, and it's important to know that edge rushers use that calf to push off, to get off. But when it comes to Rueben Bain, this is a guy, natural leverage. My concerns, obviously, is the calf injury. Is he fully healed from it? Is he back from it? In addition to that, his size, he's 6'3", 275, but I wager he's going to come closer to 6'1" or 6'2". So now you have a guy that's a little bit shorter, a little bit stockier. I know some people have talked about moving him inside to defensive tackle. I'm not in that conversation. I keep him on the outside because this is a guy that can win as a 5 technique. This is a guy that if you put him in a wide 9, like Cleveland, like a Philadelphia type of scenario, he is going to feast. For me, my comp for him, and EJ's going to love this one, it's Brandon Graham 2.0.
Oh, I was just about to say the same thing.
It's Brandon Graham 2.0. And granted, he went 13th overall. So are you really going to be willing to take that at number 1 overall? I would say yes, because edge rushers always get pushed up the board. It happens. But if I have a guy who can play like Brandon Graham, a 10, 12-year career in the NFL and win the way that Rueben Bain Jr. does, there is no doubt in my mind I would take that top 1, top 3, top 5. But Andrew, what'd you see on Rueben Bain's tape, and how do you feel about the Miami edge prospect?
I had the first note was the same as yours. He does explode off the snap. And I think another thing I really enjoyed was he just seemed to have a counter for everything an offensive lineman tried to throw at him, tried to stop him. I really liked his hands. I thought he had fast hands and was able to get leverage if he had to and kind of be patient. Didn't really overcommit a whole lot. I look for that a lot on edge rushers because there's times where you hear some analysts talk about it where you've got to look, and I've started to get more careful with it, where did the edge rusher blow around your tackle, or did the tackle do the work to make him go around there too far? So I think Bain's one of those guys that does a good job of making sure he doesn't overcommit on anything and he kind of stays in every play that way. And I will say, just to throw out another comparison, one that I noticed, and I think size-wise will kind of work out the same, because you talked about him probably measuring in at 6'1", because got to love college measurables. Yeah. I liked him a little bit too, Elijah Cansey, who this past year really showed off his pass rush chops for Tampa. Like, I think this year he could get into the 10-digit sack mark. He's done really well being in that 3-4 scheme for Tampa. So where you can kind of get away with a whole make both sides of the argument happy, where I want to move him inside, I want to keep him outside, we'll put him in the 3-4 and kind of get the best of both worlds. Cansey was picked 19th overall. I think because of his size. I could see Bain falling a little bit for the same reason, but I'd just make him a value for somebody who's on a fringe playoff team and then make them a huge value. Honestly, somebody like Tampa Bay, who's seemingly having an edge issue and right in that kind of that same ballpark, I think it'd be a very interesting combo. But yeah, I think Elijah Cansey, what he's been able to achieve in the past couple of years with Tampa, I think is a very reasonable outlook for what he could be in the pros as far as Bain.
EJ.
So I think the kid is special. What you saw in 2024 was him playing with a strained calf, and it limited his explosiveness. So what we were seeing, like all that high end explosiveness and twitchiness that we saw on the 2024 film, that's him working at a limited capacity. You go back to 2023, and this kid is out of this world. Like the get off, the hand placement, the play strength, what he does, and I expect him to get back to that 2023 version of himself this coming season. So I expect big things from him. What he is right now, I would say he is a plug and play defensive end, preferably in an odd even front. You just want to line him up on the edge and let him get after it. He plays the run with the same energy he rushes the passer with. There's no drop off from down to down, and it's not just I'm going to out athlete you out there. He's a technician. He uses his hands. He's got inside counters. He controls the hands of the offensive lineman. And on top of that, he uses his quickness to his advantage. I posted a rep. He went up against the right tackle at Cal. The right tackle at Cal failed to even touch him. Like Rueben Bain did a jab step inside and then jumped right outside and looped around and got to the quarterback. The right tackle barely got out of his stance and barely laid a finger on him. And that's just one human being that much faster than another one. And that's an example of, wow, this kid is special because he's doing some of these things. When he gets to the league, you're going to see the same. He's not going to be a superior athlete to everybody when he gets to the league, but he's going to outwork people. He's going to out-hustle people. And some guys, he is going to out-athlete people. So I think he's a plug-and-play defensive end right now. So, like, he's ready to play in the league right now. It's just a matter of consistency and health for him.
Okay. So, EJ, the edge opposite him is Akheem Mesidor. Mm-hmm. What do you have on him?
I called him a hustle face. He just, he gives you maximum effort wherever they put him in a lot of different places. I've seen him as a stand-up edge rusher. I've seen him in a 4-eye. I've seen him in a 3-tech. I've seen him in a 5-tech. They put him everywhere. They put him everywhere, and he gives excellent effort. He's a fighter. He's a guy that's just gonna grind you in the trenches. He's gonna try to get after the quarterback. He's not that wow athlete, but he's a guy that is, I would say, he fits in your rotation. He's not going to be your superstar, but he's going to be like your role player. He's going to be that guy on a strong defensive line that is like the anchor of the defensive line. You don't want to run in his direction. He's the guy that's just going to fight through all the double teams and everything. I think he's about 6'3", 280, I believe is what he's listed as. I like him as like a four eye in an eye front where he can just do what he does best, use that play strength, hold the point of attack, play against the run. He does offer some power rush to his game. But he's a guy that's like a jack of all trades, master of none, but he's just a really solid player in all aspects that they use him in.
Andrew, how about you and Mesidor?
So I always like getting a lot of background notes on guys. So I'll talk about the one thing that stuck out to me, and it was kind of a bummer. And you see it a lot anymore because of COVID and everything. I saw second team All Big 12 in 2020, and I was like, crap, this guy's going to be old. And lo and behold, he is. And I say that as a 30-year-old talking. But no, what that meant to me was what I saw on film was a lot of what EJ said. I think another thing that I like a lot with him, and EJ kind of hinted at, was he has a very big motor. So like pursuit's there if the play's extended. He's able to follow the running back if he goes out in the flats and kind of, I don't want to say cover, but provide support. He's definitely going to be somebody where a lot of teams are going to look at and be like, he is what he is at this point, and I don't think he's going to be able to turn into much more. That's where I think guys like that kind of fall into the day 3 category. Not that he can't be serviceable, but you see all these Super Bowl teams, they have rotational pass rushers. I think that's something where he could thrive, where he's not going to be somebody that gets a lot of reps, but if you want somebody to come in late on a drive and you need a lot of energy on a pass rush snap, I think that's something where Mesidor could do really well. I really liked his hands too. May not be the most controlled at times with it I had, but he at least is fighting, and that's half the battle. So it's better than guys giving up on plays, which also drives me nuts sometimes. So as much as they talk about offensive linemen having recovery ability, I think edges being able to recover whenever an offensive lineman stunts them, I think it's also important. So again, speaks to the motor he has. So that was some more notes I had. But
Good Bill.
Yeah, so Akheem Mesidor, verified 6'2", 273. You know, like EJ and Andrew talked about, he's got a really explosive first step. I argue Bain's is significantly more explosive, but Mesidor can kind of hold his own. Really good bend and flexibility for a guy that's 6'2", 275. You know, it does have a decent amount of passes batted down at the line of scrimmage, so you do like to see that, like to see the active hands. My concern is there is a little bit of an injury history concern with that undisclosed foot injury that kept him on crutches for all the 2023 season. So you kind of have that conversation in the back of your mind as to what it really was. And he sometimes relies too heavily on his initial bursts to try to get through and knife through defenses. For me, I've got a round 4 grade on Mesidor. Kind of reminds me of an early Milton Williams in a 3-4 style scheme. Not what Milton Williams eventually became and now got paid, but kind of his first couple years in the league, that same mold of a guy that you could put in a 3-4 defense as a big defensive end, kind of like that Elijah Cansey that we talked about with Bain, and develop him into a functional NFL edge. But he's not going to be the guy for a team, nor should he be paid like the guy for a team.
Okay, thank you. So the next player on defense is cornerback Damari Brown. Andrew, what do you have on Damari Brown?
Well, I always try to watch most recent film, and I saw he missed 10 games last year with his knee injury, which kind of stunk. But he also kind of cracked me up because, again, hinting at the Manny Diaz factor, he was somebody that I felt like could have played for Manny Diaz because a little bit of a reckless cornerback when I watched some of the 23 stuff. Did get to watch the Syracuse game at 24. So he's a physical tackler, I think he does a good job of tracking the ball as well as he can. By being physical as a tackler, he also is kind of relentless whenever there's blocking against him. So I don't know how well that'll do him necessarily with pass coverage and whenever there's running plays, obviously. But I always hate to say special teams to somebody because I feel like it comes off as a disrespectful tone. But he was someone to me when I was watching that I thought at the bare minimum, some special teams coordinator is going to love this guy because he's somebody that's going to fight for every single to get to the ball, every single kickoff, every single punt return. He could be a great gunner, whatever. I always feel like that comes off as a negative, but that's an NFL career. Like you've seen guys make it 10 years by just thriving on special teams and coming off a knee injury. We saw just this last year. If you have the talent of Will Johnson and all these other guys, the NFL can be scared off. That's why, not that we're talking about him, but Jermon McCoy with his knee injury, it's going to be so interesting to see how they handle him. But back to Brown here. I think it's going to be more interesting to see what he can do coming off that knee injury because the Syracuse game was the one game he played after it, and he did look a little bit rough. Like I said, I think he's all physical traits at this point and really just and he's got the speed to handle the speed receivers and he's physical to handle the possession receivers across the middle. I would like to see what he can do after a full season of rehab, off season of rehab, I should say. And Miami has a tougher schedule this year, so it's going to be good tests for that. So you're going to know right away. And then just another final background note. He had one brother who's currently on the team and another brother who previously played for Miami. So there's athletic blood in the family. So that's always helpful too. So that's another thing I look for as well.
So EJ, Damari Brown.
So this guy is he's tall, he's fast, and he's aggressive. That's a good baseline for a player right there. The thing is, like Andrew said, this is such a small sample size, and you got to see how he looks coming off of the knee injury. But from what I've seen, I watched him. I think he played the first game of the season. They had him in as a starter, the first game of the season, the 2024. That game I watched him, and he has legitimate length. He has legitimate speed where he can cover down the field. They tested him too, which is good. They tried him on a fade route, and they completed it, and it was just he was in phase, but he failed to locate the football. That's all he did, and that's just not being comfortable out there in coverage. It all leads to this kid needs reps. Because immediately after he gave up the fade route, they tested him on a post route, and he stayed in phase. He located the ball, and he got the PBU. So that tells me right there he's coachable. He's willing to learn. He's a quick learner, but it's just that you need to see it all game by game on a game by game basis. This kid is talented, and I like he's proactive when playing against the run. Usually most corners they'll get in their stance and wait for the running back to run into them, and they got the tackle. He goes and gets it. He goes and gets the ball carrier, whereas instead of sitting and waiting for the ball carrier to come to him. So I like that aggressiveness in him. His footwork, they just had all of his reps were in man coverage, which is probably all he could handle at this point. I don't know if his communication was at the point where they could do any zone or anything like that. But I saw him in man coverage and pretty physical in man coverage, pretty handsy. Not the most fluid footwork or anything like that. But he is a guy that needs reps. He needs a lot of reps because you see the foundation is there for him to be a good cornerback. But we haven't seen him on the field. We got to see him on the field on a consistent basis. So this is a guy what I was talking about when I said it's a lot of guys with upside. So if they can really hit, if they have a big season, if they have a consistent season. So this is a guy that if he gets enough reps, he could be a very good player.
Bill, Damari Brown, cornerback.
Yeah, so with Damari Brown, you're looking at a guy like EJ and Andrew have talked about, that he's got the size, 6'2", 195. But he needs snaps, and it's been said pretty heavily, 331 snaps in 2023 and then 15 last year. He's a redshirt sophomore, so we probably will see him for at least the next 2 seasons. I don't see any reason he comes out this year, but very physical, has the size, can stay low in his back pedal, shows a good click and close ability if you need him to in man coverage and off man coverage. I have concerns about his speed to mirror. He looks like a 4.6, high 4.5 guy to me, and that concerns me if he's going to be able to play full time in the zone coverage like EJ talked about. But ultimately, this is a guy, redshirt sophomore, has the upside. I see flashes of like Jalen Watson when I watched him in 2023, and that was prior to the injury. So we got to see how he bounces back from that. But I think right now I would, if I were taking him based on what I've seen so far, it would be as like a priority free agent. But is there a path for him to get into the top 125 this season? Absolutely. If he stays healthy and showcases the traits he's shown so far.
Okay, thank you. So those were probably the best defensive players, but EJ, I am curious. Linebacker Raul Aguirre, linebacker Muhammad Toure, and linebacker Keelan Marion, nose tackle Ahmad Moten, linebacker Wesley Bissanthe. Those were all defensive players that we had on the watch list. Any of those guys pop out to you?
Raul, I think they call him Aguirre.
Aguirre.
Aguirre, yeah, Aguirre.
Yep.
They call him nickname is Popo, so I'm gonna call him Popo. I think he popped out. He only started one game, and that was against Iowa State in the bowl game. But he's a player that he reads his keys very well. 6'2", 230. Reads his keys very well. He's more of an in the box type of linebacker. He's not that guy that's gonna go out in space and run with tight ends, but he gets downhill very well. He plays the run very well, and he arrives at the ball carrier with force. So he has the baseline to be a solid linebacker. But again, that's one game worth of film. So you really got to see it on a consistent basis for a whole season. Ahmad Moten, 6'3", 325. I like him as a nose tackle. He has the strength to hold the point of attack. He's basically a zero technique. You're not going to get much of a pass rush. You're not going to get much of a 3-tech activity out of him. But there's a role for that guy in the NFL. He's your basic zero tech in the eye front. What he's going to do, he's going to push the pocket. He's going to hold the attack versus the run. He's going to take up space. He's going to take on double teams and not get moved, which is important. But yeah, he has that baseline of strength, and he carries the 325 well. It's not like a plodding wide body guy that just doesn't move. He's more of a slender 325 that can move. So I like him on the defensive line. The other guys I really didn't get a look at. Yeah, that was it.
So Andrew, anybody else in the defense pop when you watched them?
Nobody when I was just casually watching, like I shouldn't say casually watching, when I was watching these other guys, nobody else was really popping off to me, and I kind of stuck to these bigger names, so to speak. Yep. That's why I was kind of glad when we were going over who we were going to focus on. But no, like I said before, I feel like this team, again, there was a lot of injuries last year, just speaking broadly. A lot of injuries. The defense showed up at times for Miami, and other times they were just not there at all. Defense second half was definitely a lot better in games, I noticed, than the first half, which is usually reverse for most college teams, I feel like. But no, it's something that I'm much more interested to see how they are in 2025, because I don't think they have someone like a Cam Ward to bail them out as much. So that defense is definitely going to have their more work cut out for them, which will make December, January, and so on allow for when we go back and look at some of these guys like the Bains and the Mesidors and stuff like that, and Brown, hopefully with more reps like EJ talked about, more guys pop off and kind of get our attention at that point.
Bill, any other defensive players that you think are worth spending podcast time on right now?
So when you look at this linebacking core between Wesley Bissanthe, Raul Aguirre, and then Mohamed Tour, the thing that concerns me the most is they're all pretty light. I mean, the heaviest guy is 6'2", 235, and that's Tour. And I mean, he has missed the 2022 and 2024 season with torn ACLs. So he's torn his ACL twice. At a certain point, the medical red flag just screams. He has a priority free agent grade for me because I see the pass rush ability. But man, his medicals scare the living daylights out of me, and I just don't see a world where he or anybody from this linebacking core gets drafted this season.
I will add too with linebacker size, because I was just talking to somebody about it today who was a Pitt fan, and when I told him I was going to talk about Miami, they made the Mr. Yuck face to me, and but I was telling them about how I had watched their linebackers the last couple weeks. And that was the first thing I said to them I said, they're all so small, but my God, do they cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he was like, you watch most of the ACC. And he's like, really any college football anymore? Because I told him, I said, linebacker is just such a devalued position anymore. It's kind of been what running back was the past couple of years. Linebackers kind of turned into, where at the NFL, you've got your 2-3 guys who are the all pros, and the rest of them are just kind of like, okay, you've got a dime a dozen. It does seem like they're all kind of going for that smaller speed cover range type of approach or speed pass rush. So it is interesting to see that you mentioned that with Miami, because like I said, I noticed it at least with Pitt, who we're not talking about, but it is something that's kind of expanding and being the new approach, which undersized linebackers used to be awful. Like the NFL would want no part of that before, but the way the game's going, it is interesting to see them kind of pivot to that.
Okay, thank you. We have some really good offensive players to go through. So at the top of the list of the offense is offensive lineman Francis Mauigoa. EJ, guard or tackle for Mauigoa, and what's your preliminary evaluation?
Yeah, I was going to say this is going to be the Will Campbell thing all over again. He can. I want to see what his. I don't know what his arm length is, but he plays like he got short arms. He has the feet and the size to be a tackle. He can absolutely play tackle, but it's some things he's got to do. He meets everything with his head and with his chest. And that's rule number one you do not do when you're playing offensive tackle. You want to shoot your hands. Use your hands first. You do not let defenders get into your chest, because you control the chest, you can control the man. Now, a credit to him is he exposes his chest all the time, and defenders still can't move him. That's a credit to his anchor, to his core strength, to his overall strength. But that's technically not what you want to do. You want him shooting his hands. You want him to get that defensive end off balance. And that's a technique thing. I don't know if they're coaching him up on that, or he may come out week one and use his hands all day long. But that's what I saw from 2024. He's given up his chest way too many times, and he's carrying his hands too low at the snap. As an offensive lineman, when you get into your pass set, you want your hands high. That way, you're ready to attack. You don't want to put your hands up right when the defensive end gets on you, because it's too late then. So I want him shooting his hands. I want him getting out into his stance with his hands up, and I don't want him opening up for a hug every time the defensive end gets close to him. So my main thing with him is, now if he does all that as a guard, this is a top of the first round guard. This is a really good guard, because once he latches on, his grip strength is very good. Once he latches onto you, you're not going anywhere. He's got you. But as a tackle, you're playing out on an island. You got a quicker, faster defensive end. You need to be more on the defensive. You need to stick and move, in the boxing term, a little bit more. And I need him to do that. I need him to shoot his hands if he's going to play a tackle. If he's going to play a guard, just get up in your stance and just maul the guy in front of you. I have no problem with that at all. And that's the thing where it's going to be a thing where the Twitter Illuminati says, oh, he's a guard, and the Twitter purists say, oh, no, he's a tackle, and it's going to be a whole big thing. I'm not going to get into that. I'm going to say he's a good offensive lineman. Let's find out where he's best at. and only like the film will tell this year what he's best at. So, but right now he's a good offensive lineman, but he needs to clean up some stuff. If he's going to stay at tackle, he's going to have to clean up some technical issues first.
That was very diplomatic, and the Twitter Illuminati.
Yeah.
I might switch my chief opinion officer to Twitter Illuminati. Andrew, offensive lineman Francis Mauigoa, guard tackle. How do you see it?
I was really trying hard to come up with a Shane Gillis make something disappear joke here, but we're going to avoid that for now. I just don't have that in me right now. But what I will make disappear is another discussion of offensive tackle or guard, because I'm going to steal. And I love Trevor Sikkema at PFF. He said this last cycle with Will Campbell, and I think EJ, that's a good pull for this discussion where everyone's like his arms are too short and this and that. We don't know what the arm length is. We don't know the exact measurables. But there's two things I'll say for this argument before I just say some things I did like with his game and his background. I do appreciate that as far as a player comp, I try to look at some tackles who have moved to guard, and the measurables are very similar to Peter Skoronski, who has turned into, I would argue, probably the most stable piece on the Titans offensive line at this point. J.C. Latham's still trying to figure out what he is at this point. Not that he's being anything bad, but what Trevor Sikkema always likes to say with Will Campbell, and I think it goes over to Mauigoa, is let him fail at tackle before you move him to guard. And I think that's really the best way to approach it, where these guys are going to be on, especially if he's a first-round pick, 4-year contract minimum, potentially a 5th year with the option. I think let him struggle at tackle if he's going to struggle with the speed of the guys. I don't think he will, as my kids run by getting so excited hearing about offensive line discussion. But I think he has the athletic traits to handle the speed of NFL edge rushers. His grip strength, like you talked about, EJ, I think is great. I think the placement of it could be a little bit better. But I think something that people don't talk about enough with him is, and this was something I didn't realize, I knew he was young. I didn't realize how young he was. He just turned 20 in June. So that means when he gets to his first rookie mini camp, he won't be able to drink alcohol. He won't be able to drink alcohol till training camp. But one would argue that he's not going to be drinking anything at that point because he's going to love the NFL so much, because that's always how that works. And just another thing, too, as far as speaking to his work ethic and everything, he was a Feldman freak. So that's always something you like to see on a background, too. So whenever you have a young guy, and again, he's shown freshman year he was a good base, started right away. Last year got even better. I love seeing players who they show that uptick year after year. And then you add on top of that, he just turned 20 and he's not going to be a pro until he's going to be 21 in 3 months at that point. So talking like he's a toddler at this point, throwing in the months here. But I think that's going to really help the argument for him to where he's going to be another one, kind of like how Latham was, just to throw another Titans offensive lineman in, where it's going to be as much of what do we do with him as it is going to be, well, what can we make him? Because there is this great piece of clay here, and some offensive line coach is going to pound the table for him in a draft room, as they should, I think. He's one of the best offensive linemen, regardless of where you put him, I think, in the draft, if he goes next year.
Yeah, so, Bill, he's your offensive tackle one. I know you want to talk about him.
Yeah, so 6'6", seen different weights. I've seen 315, I've seen 330, I've seen 340. Regardless, the athletic profile of him at 6'6", it's otherworldly at this point. This is a guy, Feldman freak, like Andrew talked about, jumps out of the gym. The wingspan that's been thrown out there is around 81 inches. So obviously it's going to be a conversation piece with arm length too. You know, a really natural knee bender despite being 6'6", a guy that's got explosive leg drive to push people through the bleachers in the south part of Miami's end zone. Significant hand placement growth. And what I mean by that, this is a guy, when you saw what he was as a freshman season, then going into a sophomore season, significant growth. Like Andrew talked about, he's so young. The sky is the limit for this guy. He is my offensive tackle 1. He's my 3rd overall prospect. And my comp for him is compared to a guy who had question marks about his wingspan, was very athletic, played the right tackle position in the NFL, and has done so very well. It's Penei Sewell. And every time I look at Mauigoa, I get flashbacks to Oregon, to Penei Sewell, and I say, for me, I would put him at right tackle. Left tackle, it's going to be a bit of a concern with that arm length, with that wingspan. You have that conversation. Right tackle, you can kind of mask it a little bit because they're not as quick speed rushers on that side in some cases. Those are more your power rushers, and you can kind of mask it. But if someone wanted to take Francis Mauigoa as an offensive tackle and say, hey, we're going to put you at left tackle and you're going to figure it out with his athletic traits and the fact that he's 20 years old, yeah, do it. Put him there, and if it doesn't work, guess what? You kick him inside the left guard, and you have an all-pro left guard for 10 to 12 years.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So the next offensive player we have is running back Mark Fletcher. Bill, you want to take this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk Mark Fletcher, I know there was a lot of buzz about him last season as well. 6'2". I've seen 225. I've seen some different weights there, so I'd be curious to see what he actually weighs in at. But just a downhill bruiser. This is a guy that's going to get north and south in a hurry. He's not going to be flashy. He's not going to be fun. He's going to get north and south in a hurry. Has really good balance moving through traffic and stays up very well. His stiff arm is a war crime in at least 15 countries. The way he stiff arms defenders should be, it's teach tape for stiff arms. He's also really nimble for a guy 6'2", 225. The feet, it's like a dancing bear almost. My concern is top end speed. This guy's going to top out probably somewhere in the 4.55 range, and it wouldn't shock me if he's near 4.6. The speed's just not there. He's also dealt with injury issues before, a Liz Frank issue during his sophomore season. So there's conversations about durability. For me, for Mark Fletcher, I've got a day 3, round 6 to 7 grade for me. Kind of like a diet Michael Turner if you take the speed away from Michael Turner and just have the bruising portion of Michael Turner. Kind of in that same mold. For me, I need to see him healthy. I need to see him obviously develop his pass protection, but ultimately he's going to top out somewhere in that 5th, 6th round just because of that top end speed concern. Andrew, what'd you have on Mark Fletcher Jr.?
I had a lot of the same stuff, the bruising style, like you talked about. I always enjoy when running backs don't shy away from contact and fight for those extra yards. Like that's one of my favorite things to write down for any of them, because I feel like that's something so many of them anymore do, especially against the sideline. And you see guys, even quarterbacks, go out a yard or 2 early, and then it's like what could have been a 1st down becomes a 3rd down, and then you got to worry about X, Y, and Z. With Fletcher too, I think like you talked about how I had written down, I'm trying to find here. I got chicken scratch all over the board. Oh, runs out of battery. I had Energizer Bunny that runs out of battery towards the end of his runs. And it's one of those things where I think that's something that can get better. Miami just, for whatever reason, their running backs, they always have tons of talent there, but they just don't use them enough, I feel like, to get them in the best shape to be what they can be. The guy was recruited to Ohio State, which is running back university and then some for the most part, at least in recent years. So, I mean, other people witnessed the talent and saw something there to work with. Cristobal has shown back in his days at Oregon that he can get running backs to develop and be these athletic guys. Right now, he's just a physical bruiser guy, short yardage, tone setter. I think he could be good in pass protection as well with his physical style and his size. I think around 6'7", priority free agent, like you said, Bill, is kind of like right where he's at. Running backs are very tough. They're kind of like quarterbacks to where, to me, they're either top end talents or they're somewhere in that day 3 range. And not to disrespect them, I just think it's one of those things where you've seen that position be devalued to that point. That being said, not that he can't turn into something. And the 40 times don't even concern me that much unless they're like 4.6 might scare me a little bit, but and we're talking Elijah Holyfield at that point, who I think is still running his 40 time as we speak. But all due respect, because his dad can kill me with his bare hands. Anyway,
Yeah.
But yeah, Bruiser runs out of battery. Like I said, I like the pass protection aspect. I think that's something that'll get him onto a team one way or the other. So that's what I have.
Okay. We're getting a lot of good voice clips. So the Energizer Bunny that runs out of batteries. I love it. Absolutely love it. EJ, what do you have on Mark Fletcher?
More of the same. He's a big kid. You want him going north and south. He has a little bit of a short area quickness to where he can elude tacklers. I want him to spend more time playing behind his pads, like your 6'2", 220 be like run like your 6'2", 220. Want him to play behind his pads. Like, don't be afraid to run some guys over. Sometimes some guys he wants to juke, and like you don't got no business juking anybody when you're that size. He doesn't have the long speed, but you're not looking for him to be that. For him, I would say his best trait would be probably is just like his straight line burst. He has that initial burst to where he can get past the line of scrimmage. And then like once he builds up his momentum, he can break his tackles. But I want to see him round out his game. Where he's gonna make it at the next level is where he's gonna have to round out his game. He's gonna have to be a pass protector. He's going to have to be a pass receiver. He's going to have to make himself a viable option in the passing game. And then I could see him being a rotational running back, say on some inside zone, and you want to run some power. Let him just get all the type of runs where it gets him on a downfield runway. That way he can do the most damage with his size and gaining momentum. But I see him as mainly a rotational running back, somebody that can contribute in short bursts, or if you want to run your 4-minute drill with him, you can do that. But anything else, like in order to grow his game, he's going to have to add the other aspects of the game and the blocking into the passing game.
Awesome. So, Steve, another draft professor. It's good to see you in the chat. Thank you very much. The next Miami offensive player we're going to talk about is wide receiver CJ Daniels. EJ, you want to take this one?
Yeah. He is a 6'2", 200. Spent his seasons at LSU last year, transferring over to Miami this year. I watched him against Arkansas. He's a guy that he's not going to wow you with physical ability or downfield speed or anything like that. He was a track guy, but to put it in perspective, he ran track. His 100-meter dash was 12.38. To put that in perspective, Tyreek Hill's 100-meter dash, we all know Tyreek Hill is fast. His 100-meter dash was 10.1. So you see, we get a little scale of what the real speed is, but that's not how he's going to win. What he does have good acceleration, deceleration, whereas he is once he gets off the line of scrimmage and into his route, he can stop on a dime and turn around for the stop routes, and that's how he gets his separation. He gets his separation with short area quickness. He's a guy that he could be a volume catcher. That's how they used him at LSU. They used him more as a volume catcher, guy in a quick game using the little stick routes, slants. He did get deep on a double move where the quarterback had a nice pump fake. He got deep on a double move and he got down the field on the cornerback. He was able to stack him. That's the thing. He didn't outrun the quarterback, but once he got ahead of him, he was able to stack him. Whereas he got right in front of the cornerback, and the cornerback had to go through him in order to get to the football. So he is a guy that's going to win with his skill. He's going to win with savvy. Not so much going to out athlete anybody, but he's going to be a polished wide receiver. I think he can be. He's going to another guy, a rotation type of player. He's going to be in your wide receiver room. He's going to be a physical guy. I wouldn't mind seeing him play in the slot some, where he can get those short slants and get up the field. I would like to see him. He can play those little whip routes. He can get yardage on those, but I would like to see him play in the slot a little bit more too.
Okay, Andrew, CJ Daniels.
I thought his speed wasn't as impressive as it could be at times. I think LSU, it's funny, Garrett Nussmeier was bragging at SEC Media Day. He's so excited for the speed they have this year. And I think if Daniels could have stayed there, I think it would have been even more better. But you talked about his track background, EJ. He also has a basketball background in high school too. So I like seeing that on receivers as well. I think that gets forgotten about because to me that lets me know they have that rebounding ability. They can high point the ball, attack the ball in the air, and I think that can sometimes get forgotten and overshadowed looking at a background. Like you talked about, I think he could definitely be a vertical threat for Miami. Whether Carson Beck can get the ball down the field to him is another question. But that's the discussion to have very soon, I'm sure. But some other notes I had on here. He's produced everywhere. When he was at Liberty, he produced at LSU. The Liberty offense obviously was NCAA 25 type numbers there. So it's always hard to watch anybody there, especially former my guy Malik Willis, who I still stand by is going to be something in the NFL, but that's again a discussion for another day. But yeah, no, I think something in the slot definitely could be something he could really thrive in. Having watched a lot of Bucs football, I think I'm so spoiled where I get to watch Chris Godwin work out of that role, and he's right up there, I think, with some of the best in the NFL at that position, obviously. So whenever I see guys with shifty footwork, good balance, and the ability to kind of get controls of their body, I always think you have something you can do there as a slot receiver, and I thought that as well watching Daniels.
Bill, CJ Daniels, wide receiver at Miami.
Yeah, so when you look at CJ Daniels, verified at 6'1", 205, so a little bit on the smaller side, and EJ and Andrew hit pretty much everything. He's got the ability to stretch the field vertically, even though he's not really a burner per se. He's got track speed, shows a really good burst getting off the line of scrimmage, a natural feel for finding soft spots in zone coverage. This is a guy who's going to make his money finding those scramble drills. My concern is that his route running could use some refinement, especially when you look at the top of the breaks of the routes on the in-breaking and the out-breaking routes. And he just can't really create consistent separation there. For me, CJ Daniels, I've got an early round 4 grade, probably right outside the top 100. Kind of the same mold as Jawan Jennings for San Francisco, what he's been able to do for San Francisco in his career so far. I think that'd be a great career path for CJ Daniels, a guy who's got a little bit of size to him, a little bit of burst to him, a little bit of speed to him. Doesn't really do any one good thing excellent. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none type of wide receiver.
So thank you. So I want to give a shout out. So Steve, again, good to see you in the chat. Ryan Sparks. So EJ and Andrew, if you have not met Ryan Sparks, he is going to be sitting in Bill's seat next week when we do Baylor and TCU. He will be a guest on the podcast. And then Peter Quinn, another draft professor. You're here. That's awesome. Okay. We have covered most of the Miami offensive players. We'll give a few minutes here after we pause for a quick commercial. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience? Let them know about all of your great content.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Harbaugh. You can find me on Twitter. I don't call it X. I'm old school and I still call it Twitter. At Mandrew NFL. My full-time gig is I actually get to cover the NFL. Lucky enough to do that. I am the lead writer and managing editor for Bucks Wire and Vikings Wire under the USA Today umbrella. So if you hear me make a lot of Bucks comparisons like you've heard twice tonight with Chris Godwin and Kalijah Kancey, that is because those are the players I'm most exposed to. Nobody so far has earned a Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison comparison or Darasaw or anything else like that. So we'll save those special ones for another time, I'm sure. But I've been doing this since 2018 was like the first draft I got to cover. I did it for fantasy football. Done different jobs and places covering the league in different ways. Worked for 33rd Team before it fell apart. RIP, pour one out for that. And so I mean, I've been all over the place with the NFL. A lot of fun experiences and stories, and wouldn't want to be doing anything else with anybody else at this point.
Yeah, this is your third straight week podcast in here, so thank you so much appreciated. EJ.
What's happening, everybody? I'm EJ. You can find me here every Thursday, 9 o'clock. What I do is film breakdowns. I talk about prospects, film breakdowns, scheme breakdowns, player breakdowns, all film-driven opinions. If you don't agree with me, don't agree with the film. Don't argue with me, argue with the film. Two things I don't do. I don't use the word generational. I rarely use the word elite. So if you want any of those words, I am not your guy. But what I do, I'll give you honest opinions of what I think about a player, where he fits, what he does well. Pretty much I do film breakdowns on the app formerly known as Twitter. I do film breakdowns there. Pretty much I like to show my work. So what I like about a player, I'll give you examples of what he is. You'll see video there of some film. But basically, if that's your thing, if that's what you like, give me a follow, or better yet, tune into the show every Thursday at 9.
Yep. So, EJ, I will say that you are an elite podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first or the second podcast that you did, I'm like, because you were doing like 7 p.m. shows last cycle, and I'm like, EJ needs the later time slot when people watch. Like, I'm like, elite.
I'll take
Bill.
that.
Yeah, so you can find all of my content over on X at Spark Scouting, also on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and Substack. You search Spark Scouting, I'm going to pop up there. Also a writer and analyst for the Right Way Sports Network. That's twsn.net. You can see all of my content over there, from NFL draft, college football, cover it all. You can also see me here on the Mrs. Relevant Daily Draft podcast. If you stuck around earlier, you saw me and Sam Teets go tit for tat talking about Dane Brugler's board. You'll see me tomorrow night with Anthony Russo going over quarterbacks, as well as you'll see me a multitude of times. Steve, I'll be joining his show this Saturday over on X as well. Dale and I, Bengals and Brews, will be joining each other on Sunday talking football there. And also Ryan Sparks to add, yes, I did watch Burt Auburn, and then I turned the tape off when he went 6 for 12 from 40 to 49 yards. So, yes, I have a big board of 435 players, and I watch specialists. I give them the attention they deserve when they deserve it.
Yeah, Ryan Sparks, we're going to be dropping kickers into the chat. We're going to have to mute your keyboard.
Yeah, he's trying to test me, but I watched him. So, I promise.
Ironically, when we did the Virginia Tech episode, Dale did sneak the kicker from Virginia Tech into the show. Like, it did happen. So we just don't want to make that a trend. I'm just saying. You can follow the channel at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. What you're going to get on this channel is we're going to cover the 11 offensive positions and the 11 defensive positions, and we're going to cover them every day. We typically do not talk about kickers and punters unless, somebody throws them into the chat. But give the channel a follow on X or YouTube. The best thank you can give is to hit subscribe on YouTube. You will also be able to find this podcast and all of our other podcasts on Spotify. They get uploaded. Sometimes it's the day after the podcast. Sometimes it's the night of. It just depends on how late I'm up that night. In addition to that, I'd like to just advertise the content that we're doing next. So as Bill said, we have a quarterback show tomorrow night. We have 5 really good ones. And 2 weeks later, we have 5 even better. But we're down to the top 10 at this point. So Friday, quarterbacks. Sunday, we're going to be doing a running back big board with Brian Maffey. Monday, Ohio State team preview. Tuesday, Auburn team preview. Wednesday, Colorado team preview. On this podcast, Baylor and TCU. I know that Ryan Sparks loves Sawyer Robertson, so he is going to come on and tell everybody why he likes Sawyer Robertson. And Andrew and EJ can debunk anything if they choose to. And then we will have podcasts on Saturday and Sunday moving forward as well. So daily draft content here on the Draft Professor. We have 22 podcasters showing up once a week. This channel would not function without EJ, Andrew, and Bill showing up once a week, or in Bill's case, showing up 2, 3, 4 times a week. I don't think Bill's wife would let him show up more than 4 times a week, but I'm not going to put it past him.
Hey, if it happens, it happens. Just make sure to keep tuning in, folks. The more you tune in, the more I'm going to show up.
Yeah. So we are saving Carson Beck for last. So there's a couple of other offensive players that we haven't mentioned. One is center James Brockermeyer. One is guard Anez Cooper. And I'm looking to see if the list ever had anybody else. EJ, did either of those guys pop on tape to the point where you would spend podcast time talking about them before Carson Beck?
I would spend like half a second talking about him. 30 seconds. We'll give him 30 seconds. I just watched Brockermeyer before we actually jumped on. He was the last guy I watched. I watched him over at TCU. I watched him in 2 games against Baylor and against SMU. Because I wanted to watch him against an odd front team, and I wanted to watch him against an even front team. Against the odd front team with a zero tech head up on him, he did surprisingly well. I think he was listed at like 6'3", 295 or something like that. He did surprisingly well with his leverage. He's what they call sawed off. He's like a squatty build, but it works for him as far as leverage goes. He's able to anchor down and hold the point of attack. Against like true power, I think he's gonna struggle. He'll give you a fight, but I think he'll struggle against true power. What he does, I think he's a pretty smart player. He always leads his defender to where his help is. So if the offensive line is sliding to the left, he's gonna try and lead the defender into where his guard is, so the guard can help out with his blocks. He always finds work. Being as though he's a center, he may not always have a defensive lineman to block. So he's either going to climb to the second level and take on the linebacker, or he's going to help out one of his guards with a defensive tackle. So he's always finding work. He's not on, like, if you looked at Jake Slaughter at Florida, he's on the opposite spectrum of that. Slaughter is more of your athletic move type of center. That's not what Brockermeyer is. He's more of you want to hold the point of attack with him. You want to pretty much get vertical push with him. He's not a guy you want to get out in space and have him leading the way on screens. I don't think he has the like high level foot quickness for that. But he's a solid player. He's also a smart player. He scans very well. He's able to pick up blitzes. He's able to pick up stunts. But he's a player that doesn't wow you athletically, but you see there's a baseline for a solid player there that possibly could develop with a little bit more size and strength added to his game. Because the thing is about the center position, it's not all physical, it's partly mental too. As far as centers go, they have to be on the same page as the quarterback as far as reading, setting the protections and reading what the defense is. The center has to do all that as well, because in some centers in the NFL, they call the line protections for the quarterback. So he's a guy that I can see the potential in doing that. I can see the upside in doing that. But it's just that he has to round out his physical abilities. He has to be in a scheme where it accentuates what he does well as a center. If they're looking for a center that's going to get out and screens and be mobile and run a whole lot of zone, he's not your guy. But if you want a guy that's just going to be smart, be steady, and he has 2 good guards next to him that can help out, he can fit in as a center. Basically, I think probably he'll come into the league as like a backup, probably practice squad type of guy and try to work his way up the ladder. But there's something there. There's something there if he puts in the work, if he gets into the right opportunity. And the other guy, the guard, he's a big kid. I like his strength. He has a power game to him. He's another guy. He has to round out his balance. He has to get his footwork and his hands. I need them to be in sync. But there's a baseline for a solid guard right there, because when they run the ball and he actually can get downhill and start driving on guys, he moves bodies out the way. So there's a lot of upside there with what's his name, Anez Cooper.
Yep.
There's a lot of upside with them, but he has to just refine his technical ability.
Andrew, anything to add on any of the other offensive players not named Carson Beck?
I had felt like I had watched Brockermeyer 5 times, and somehow I hadn't. That was one thing I remember thinking going into it. I was like, I feel like I've heard this name 800 times, and I think it's just because he's been in the portal twice. So just a little funny note there. But no, just for me being Mr. Detective here and throwing in some background, he is the son of Blake Brockermeyer, who was a first-round pick in the 90s by the Carolina Panthers. He was an All-American offensive tackle out of Texas, so really strong football bloodlines there. Dad was a 9-year pro in the NFL, so something you always like to see, especially out of offensive linemen, is whenever they have a dad or relative who is able to show them the ropes and everything like that. This offensive lineman, I don't know why it's always more fun just to see how it works out, but work ethics there, the tenacity. It's kind of like whenever you have a bull, fighting bull, it's always they're able to get the best fighting bulls from there on. Same with offensive linemen. I just feel like offensive linemen's kids make the next best offensive linemen. So just fun little tidbit on Brockermeyer.
Okay. So, Bill, anything to add on the offensive lineman, or can we kick off Carson Beck?
I think EJ and Andrew hit pretty much everything on the offensive lineman. The one thing I will add for Anez Cooper is his verified measurement. 6'5", 347, 34 and 3/8 inch arms. That's a big boy. So the good news is they're going to need every bit of that mass to protect Carson Beck, because boy, is he going to need it. If you want, Jim, I can go ahead and just dive right into Carson Beck. All right, so let's talk Carson Beck. So 6'4", 220 pounds, obviously, is what you're looking at when you see Carson Beck. For me, the big concerns, obviously, this is a guy had a very good release, and it was very compact. Had advanced recognition of zone coverage when everything was clean. If he has junk around him or there's static around him in the pocket, he panics and everything just goes off the rails. Had a good arm. It wasn't a great arm. It wasn't something to write home about, but a good arm. Could make every NFL throws and have a little bit more juice behind it. The problem is he struggled to pull the trigger early on deep outs. His pocket mobility, I've talked about it before when we talked quarterbacks here at the Mr. Relevant Daily Drive podcast. It was closer to your grandfather shuffling around the house to go get the morning newspaper than it was him actually exploding to evade a rusher. His deep ball mechanics are all over the map. It's scattershot. You look at a lot of those Georgia games, watch the ball placement of Carson Beck. Those receivers have to work and sweat to get that ball, and it showed. All of that considered, you also have a UCL injury. We don't know what we're going to get from Carson Beck. For me, he's a round 5 grade quarterback, and I if I'm a Miami fan, I would be concerned. And I think him going to Miami was probably one of the less friendly places to go, just because he has to play in Cam Ward's shadow. And that first game where he throws 175 yards and 2 interceptions, he's going to get, well, Cam Ward didn't do that last year. Cam Ward threw for 330 yards. Cam Ward threw for 5 touchdowns. He let a comeback again. He's going to constantly be compared to Cam Ward. And I just don't know if Beck has the talent to outplay Cam Ward's extensive shadow at Miami. For me, Carson Beck is Jake Locker 2.0. Very athletic, decent-sized arm, struggles with ball placement. struggles with accuracy when everything starts to fall apart, and he just gets in his head and he panics too much. And I think that was one of his biggest problems at Georgia. But EJ, what do you have on Carson Beck?
Yeah, a little bit of the same. I watched him against Alabama this year, and he's a guy, you know how they say cornerbacks need to have a short memory, just like forget that if you give up one play, just forget about it, it's on to the next. Carson Beck does not have a short memory. He has a long memory. If he makes one mistake, then it's not a second mistake is coming. His mistakes come in threes. So he's a guy that if it's not I thought he struggled with passes where he had to layer the ball, get it over the. When I say layer the ball, I mean you have to throw the ball over the second level of defense and drop it in between the second level and the third level of the defense. I thought he struggled with that. I think if it's not, his best passes are when he's making drive throws. It's where he's got a throwing lane and he can just gun it in there. So against Alabama, he threw an interception. And one thing Carson Beck has a lot of flaws, but it wasn't all his fault at Georgia last year. One thing I want to say is all of his interceptions are not created equal. I say that to say against Alabama, his first interception, he was reading the defense. The defense was showing favorable coverage, so he changed the play at the line of scrimmage. Everybody got the call. It was going to be a wide receiver screen to the left-hand side. Everybody got the call except for the wide receiver. So he gets the snap. He throws the ball out thinking the wide receiver is going to be right there. He gets the ball out fast because that's how you got to do the screens. The wide receiver is all the way 15 yards up the field. He's running. Only guy that was there is the Alabama defender. I don't consider that Carson Beck's fault. It's just that he screamed out the play. The wide receiver just didn't get the play. But the problem is what I say is Carson Beck's fault. That very next series, he puts the ball in harm's way again, just for the simple fact he's trying to get the ball out. He's trying to move fast, and he puts the ball in harm's way. He's trying to throw an out route, and he's late, and he puts it right in the hands of an Alabama linebacker. It would have been a pick six, but the Alabama linebacker just dropped the ball. That's what I say where he just compounded his mistake by making a second one by keeping it in his head. He worked through this was early in the game. He worked through that. He wound up throwing another interception where again he had trouble layering the football. He didn't judge the depth that the linebacker had in his coverage, and he tried to throw it over his head, but he tried to throw the ball over Jahai Campbell's head. Jahai Campbell was able to jump up and get that interception. But still, he needs to settle down. He needs somebody to drill footwork and pocket presence and pocket mobility into his head, because he gets happy feet back there. Like he starts tap dancing for no reason in a clean pocket. If he doesn't see what he's expecting to see and the pocket is still clean, he loses his poise. He starts tap dancing where he doesn't see what he's expecting to see instead of calmly going through your progressions. But there are some things that I do like about him. I like the fact that he's decisive. He gets the ball out fast. He wants to run an offense that's on time, and he's not afraid to throw the ball in there with anticipation. I like the anticipation throws, but it's just that he gets ahead of himself, and I think he really does struggle with accuracy. I mean, Georgia did lead the nation in drops, and some of those drops is legit. He put the ball right on the wide receivers, and they just straight dropped it. Other times is he's putting the ball, just like he tried to throw a hole shot versus cover 2 to number 4, Oscar Delp. And Oscar Delp was running the corner route wide open. All Carson Beck had to do was put it right there on him. Instead, Oscar Delp had to do a whole 180 because Carson Beck put the ball on his left-hand shoulder when he was headed to the right. And Oscar Delp wound up dropping the football. Now, that is not on Oscar Delp. That's not his drop. That's Carson Beck's drop, because that's poor ball placement and that's poor accuracy. One thing that will get a quarterback benched other than turnovers is bad accuracy. So he needs to settle down. He needs to get his mechanics to the point where they're repeatable and they're muscle memory. Like you see you see, they had a clip of Drew Brees when he used to be practicing, and he practiced his footwork, and it looked like a sprinkler, just skeeting all over the place, bang, 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 bang. That's how he needs to get his mechanics. He needs to pretty much get with a QB coach and get his mechanics up to speed, get his footwork up to speed, and that will by extension improve his accuracy. As far as the mental makeup, because I think we've seen enough instances where if he makes a mistake, he's going to harp on it, he's going to dwell on it. We need to see evidence to the contrary of that now, because we've seen it multiple times where he's thrown multiple interceptions in succession just because it's in his head, he's thinking about it. So we need to see him grow past that. But with that said, I don't think that he was in the best situation in Georgia last season. I don't think he's in the best situation at Miami right now, but I think it's something that we are aware of what his weaknesses are now, and hopefully that coaching staff can scheme around that and has worked on that with him to where we'll see a better version of himself. A better version of Carson Beck probably would be taking a little bit more off of his plate, leaning on the run game a little bit, getting the quick game in there, so that way he's not thinking. He can work the intermediates, the deep routes, but don't put that on his plate so much. Because over at Georgia, he was doing full field reads. He was doing the high low concepts and all of that. He was doing all the pro stuff. So let's scale that back a little bit. Get him some quick game going. Get him some spread stuff. Get him comfortable first, and then reintroduce all the pro concepts to him. That way he's already in a rhythm. That way he's already hot, and that way maybe his passes can look a little bit better. So, but I mean, he's a quarterback that's a work in progress. I wouldn't necessarily say that he should come out this year if it doesn't all happen for him. He may be one of those fifth-year guys that needs that extra year just to continue his development. So, but like the talent is there. I think he has the talent to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but it's just he's got a lot of work to do to iron out his game as far as mentally and as far as technically.
Andrew. That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah. Is this where I tell him he shouldn't have kids? I feel like that's the only non-negative thing we have about him at this point. No, I mean, it's all right. EJ is very passionate. To be honest, I was ready to make an argument that the Alabama game wasn't as bad. But EJ's made me think I've got to go back and watch that again. But then I'm like, you know what? It's Carson Beck. I'm not going back and watching it. I'm just going to.
It wasn't all bad, but like he made some good throws there. But it's just like, and it was a good game too.
Yeah, and I mean, Jalen Milroe makes it worth watching again too. But no, I think what's has been said about Carson Beck. But I think there's two things that are going to work in his favor or work against him, and you can make the argument for both of the things I'm going to mention, doing either or. If you look at, and this is from what I could find, again, Mr. Background guy here, because that's been I've been the Steve Nash to the Amari Stoudemire and Sean Marion between Bill and EJ, and you two figure out which one of you is who. And Jim, you're Mike D'Antoni, so congrats on that role.
Yeah.
The highest earning NIL quarterbacks, Darian Mensah, who went to Duke from Tulane, earning $8 million. Arch Manning's earning $6.8 million at Texas. And right behind Arch is Carson Beck at $4.3 million. So he's got 4.3 million reasons for the University of Miami to stick with him through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, I mean, it's either going to be baptism by fire, and it's going to be, oh my God, his stock is just going to just GameStop crash after peaking and being the preseason number one last year.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's going to be, he's going to be able to fight through it and deal with this Miami schedule. Because that was something I wanted to look at too. I guess I'm adding a bonus. There'll be a third thing. Like, they play Notre Dame in week 1 at home. They play Florida at home. They play Louisville at home. Syracuse at home. All of their tough games for the most part are at home. except the last 2 games of the year, they have to go to Lane Stadium and play the Hokies, and they have to go to Pittsburgh right before the start of December, which I could tell you living in Western Pennsylvania, it could be 60 degrees that day, or it could be negative 20 and have 6 feet of snow. So he's either going to have a very fun experience those last 2 weeks, or he's going to have an awful experience. Now, the second thing is, I can tell you from what I've heard from people, there is no one that stands behind their quarterback like Mario Cristobal. I've heard personal stories from people that explain it in very fun detail that I can't explain, but trust me when I say Mario Cristobal will be behind Carson Beck for better or worse. I know there's a little bit behind-the-scenes talk here from the 4 of us. Is he going to start the whole year with the talent they've got behind him? I think he will. I think Cristobal, again, when he brings in a guy and he dubs him the guy, it's going to take a lot for him to not be the guy. But that being said, Cristobal himself has also had some disappointing seasons compared to what expectations have been at Miami. But with the way the transfer portal works now, coaches have a much longer leash, and they have a chance to turn around because of the transfer portal. So I would say the money and the coaching and the schedule are what has a potential to either make or break Carson Beck. That's the only thing I have left to add between Bill and EJ is those 3 things are going to be very interesting factors to watch.
Definitely. And did I understand that he has another year of eligibility left?
God, probably.
I think he does.
He's a redshirt senior, so he could apply for a graduate depending on how they classify him. By all accounts that I've heard, this is his last rodeo.
Yeah, Accord could have got one and he did. So I think it's one of those things where they can, but it doesn't mean they will.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we've been going for more than 75 minutes, so we are going to say farewell. For EJ, Andrew, Bill, myself, the 82 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on our quarterback show tomorrow night. And thank you to Steve, Ryan, Peter in the chat. It is really good to see you stop by and tell us what you think. So have a good night, everybody.
Peace.